Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Okay, you can do better than that. Good morning. Good morning. Oh, I like the feedback. Anyone been to Hawaii before? And there they say, aloha. Aloha. You guys haven't been to Hawaii. You got to really, aloha. Aloha. And none, I'm not Hawaiian. You mean Hawaiian here? So, good morning. I'm glad you're all here. It makes me just happy to see that our community of wireless professionals is growing. We're about 50% more than we were last year. We probably could have grown even more, but wanted to not grow too fast because we kind of like the camaraderie and the people getting together and talking and having a good time that we had last year. So we wanted to repeat it, but not too much. So we added about 50%, and then some people kept asking and begging. So we're about 160 compared to the 100 we had last year. So we're glad you're here. First of all, this conference is about you. It's not about me, it's not about the people who are going to be presenting, it's about you. And when I say you, it's also the people presenting, because our presenters, all of them come from attendees. About 25% of you are going to be up here on stage talking, either this stage or the one next door. The idea is to have people who care about wireless talk about wireless to other people who care about wireless. So if you want to take one of the 10 talk slots, and for those of you who are new, and about half of the people here haven't attended before, we have something called a 10 talk. We've got them scheduled every day. It's 10 minutes, so when you present, you don't have to present and stress out that you've got to have an hour-long presentation and you're going to have 100 people watching and you feel all stressed. Okay, you still might have 100 people watching or 150, but you don't have to talk for 10 minutes. And it's actually good to get you to force to take the topic down to only 10 minutes, because you just hit the highlights and the important parts. And we're after in 10 talks something that you have passion about. If you have passion about choosing the correct DFS channels, anyone have passion about that? I sure wish I did. I wish I knew the answer to the question, so I was hoping someone would give that talk, but it didn't show up. So we'd like you to all think, and I have a couple slots open on Wednesday and Thursday, that if you have a topic, come see me and we'll get you into the 10 talks rotation. Again, they're only 10 minutes and we'll record them and you'll be saved for posterity on the internet, but it gives you your chance to speak for your little teeny bit. So this conference is about you. I'm a firm believer that knowledge is like manure. If you spread it around, things grow. If you just hang on to it yourself, you start to stink, you know? And so the idea here is each of us has individual knowledge and experience on something we've done. If we collectively counted the number of APs we've all installed, it staggers the mind. But if we also count the number of bad APs that we've installed, it probably is even more staggering. I freely admit, there was times years ago, I was in an amplifier kick. And for about 6 months, every install I ever did had a 30 dB amplifier on it. Why? Because I could. And back when you thought coverage was everything, we just needed to get RSSI everywhere, amplifiers were fantastic. Now when I had to go back and fix those and realize that it didn't actually, the handset didn't get back with the same amplification that came down, there's a whole learning curve there. And hopefully we can together work through some of those learning curves and share what we've all learned individually as a group. Let's see. It's also about the tech. We like it being about the people, but we wouldn't be here if we just wanted to get hugs from Devin.
I would.
I know Sam was the one that did the reach behind, but we all know, No, I'm good. I'm good. But it's about the tech too, so let's make sure we continue to talk about the tech. Vendors are great. We love our vendors. How many people here work for a vendor of some supplier? So thank you. Glad you're here. We like our vendors. Without them, we wouldn't have any things to work with. But this conference isn't about the vendors. We're not up here saying, I'm from XYZ vendor. Though some of our presenters do come from a vendor, that's not why they're presenting. They're presenting because they have some knowledge we all want to share. In your bag, you got a bunch of cool stuff. Anybody like the bags? Yes, yeah. The goal for the bag, thank you. The goal for the bag came from, years ago I used to teach like CWNE classes forever, and at the end of class people would say, that was a really cool thing, can you give me some digital item? And so I'd hand out, ages me, floppies. And then they filled up a whole floppy, so I started handing out CDs. And then they became DVDs because there was so much stuff to give out. And I realized people like getting stuff. So when you come to the conference, you get stuff. But it's just not, well, there is some cool like gloves. By the way, those gloves, I borrowed some for the last couple weeks to go on my walk. The fingers actually work on your thing. They're not some weird fashion statement that has weird black fingers. They work. So there's some of that kind of stuff. But the goal of the bag was to give you the tools so you could go out and do more of what a wireless LAN professional does. Spectrum analyzers in there, packet analyzers in there. There's the tools that help you go around and do your jobs. Now, how many of you are alumni? You've came to a WLPC in the past? A bunch of you. Yeah, you didn't get the same stuff in the bags because you already got it last time. And your job is, if you had a whole year to evaluate some software, and if you want to continue to use it, buy it. Just don't keep coming here and saying, I'm going to get another extend the year license. Go ahead and buy the tools you're doing. A couple other notes. There is in your bag, in the envelope, there was a thing for the CWNP conference in the fall. Yeah, I like more conferences. Conferences are good. Gives us more chance to build a community together. Also in the bag, there was a USB stick. It's really big. Okay, it's only this big. Last year's was really small, and people lost them, so I went to a little bigger one. But internally, it's 128 gig, so you can put lots of stuff on there. And it's USB 3.0, so it's fast. The idea is that it has lots and lots of things on there. If you printed out all the PDFs on that USB stick, it would take more than a case of paper. Now, you're probably not going to do that because you don't have time to read them all, but that's how much information is in there. There's also another event called Wireless Tech Field Day. Anyone watch a Wireless Tech Field Day video? I'm guessing about everyone. We have a couple Tech Field Day delegates here. If you're a vendor, I strongly suggest you talk to Stephen Foskett and Tom Hollingsworth and get involved in Tech Field Day. It gives you this audience. We just saw nearly everyone has watched the videos. If you're a blogger, how many bloggers do we have? You should try to become a delegate. Now, part of being a delegate is you get to go and sit live instead of watching them on video. It's kind of a cool thing. Plus, you get to hang out with Blake, and he's a big deal on the internet. So you want to be around Blake. Breakfast is going to be outside, where you've already been. Lunch is in the restaurant. It's a big buffet lunch. You can kind of pick what you want, but it's back on the other side of registration. And I have to apologize for the mess up with the hotels. September, I contracted and signed a contract for this hotel and prepaid for 160 nights. And they thought it would be really fun if they also sold those same nights to someone else. And so I didn't find out about the snafu with the hotel rooms until about 4 o'clock yesterday. And they said, oh yeah, we're just going to shift some of your people somewhere else. And at that point in time, I didn't have anything I could do. It was already done. But I'll be in and out, going and hammering on the general manager to see what we can do to fix it. I don't think that was an appropriate response from them, but we'll be working on that. So I apologize. That wasn't my, didn't plan on that until, in fact, I still don't plan on it, but that's the way we are. We have lots of door prizes to give away because people like door prizes. So first door prize, pulled randomly, is a Leatherman Skeletool for Edward Maddie. You must be present to win. Edward Maddie, when you see him, tell him he did not win. Okay? You got to be here. What? Yeah. Well, then why don't you come up and get your prize? All his neighbors are going, you're supposed to be here. Now, this one does not get through TSA, so you're going to have to put it in your bag.
I drove, so thank you, sir.
There you go. Next one up, Jeff Turley. Now, Jeff, come on up. This is a 7-port USB hub, 3.0, but the cool part is it fits on the back of your computer. Strongly recommend you use like 1-inch-wide Velcro tape to put this on, and you can put it on and keep all your things. So, I've got a couple of those. If you might have noticed, these prizes have a lot to do with the things I want. So, last one we go, Brian Trost. This one I carry with me everywhere. It's a little baby Fenix light that's, I'll have to tell you, when you first turn it on, you hit, it's really small, it fits in your pocket. It's not very bright. And then you hit it again, it gets brighter, you hit it again, it gets brighter. And you never know when you need a flashlight, so thanks. We will be having giveaways at all the sessions where everyone's together. And most of the 10 talks will have some giveaways too. Okay, we have a, you want to hold up that little microphone back there, Scott?
The
there.
catch box? Turn me up a bit there, Scott. Check, 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 1, 2, check.
So when we have Q&A, I got this little box. Go ahead and toss it to somebody and see if it works.
Who'd like the box?
And now you can talk in the box.
This is pretty cool.
So it should be padded enough to not hurt, but this is a pretty big area, so I'm guessing if we toss it a little too hard, it might bounce off someone's head. But since we're recording all of the sessions, we would like your question to also be on the recording. So when we have Q&A sessions, we'll be tossing the catch-a box, is that what it's called? Anyway, it's a microphone you throw.
Catch box.
Catch box, there we go. And it's pink because that was the color that came when I ordered it. So we'll go with that. All right, other questions? Tonight, for dinner, you're on your own. There's some 160 people who also think it's really cool. Yeah, you see he comes up and he interrupts everything. He just does this normally.
1, 2, 3.
There we go. Thanks, UC, for interrupting the entire conference. It was kind of nice to have him not come into Europe, so he just did it remotely. He phoned in. No one walked up in front and took pictures. It was kind of boring. So.
Didn't I do this last year?
Yes, but he would get like really close.
That's right, he came right up.
Yeah, he kind of liked that. So, dinner's on your own. Tonight, I would recommend that you find some friends that are here. Everyone here likes Wi-Fi, and you definitely have something to talk about. Grab a couple people and go find some place to eat. So, if not, grab some people you don't like and go grab something to eat. You can do that too. There will also tonight be the NSA show. We don't know where it's going to be or when, but check with Blake and Sam. Are you going to play along too, Jen? Yeah. So NSA show is going to record an episode tonight. Tomorrow night is going to be Wi-Fi and whiskey. Oh, whiskey and Wi-Fi. Oh, whiskey takes precedence over Wi-Fi. Oh, okay. So they'll also be doing that. And if you saw the last Whiskey and Wi-Fi podcast, you realize that only the first 10 or 15 minutes has any value. After that, it's just pure entertainment, and it's just fun just to watch them, their eyes kind of go a little, you know. So I might attend just to watch that and make it happen. So moving on, we have an announcement to make. The first announcement is, can I have Brian Long come up? Where's Brian? Ooh, Brian's coming up. Brian's coming up because he's going to come and be the first one to take one of these seats, and I can congratulate him on being CWNE. Congratulations. Yay. Have a seat. There's your expert.
Thank you.
And have a seat. Our keynote, a guy named Sandip Patel, who I worked with back in October for about a week. The guy's fantastic. Had something come up and he had to cancel like at the last minute, so we moved the CWNE Roundtable to the front. Not only that, we're not going to be using the CWNEs like Devin, who's been around forever. He's, how do you say it? You're as old as dirt? Older than dirt. Okay, so we're not using the old CWNEs, we're using the young ones. So could we get Blake? He's only up. Mike? Chris Lyttle? The switch is on the side. So these are all CWNEs who've been, what, in the last, when did you get yours, Blake? Christmas?
Sam, when did I get mine? December 26th. Your birthday? My birthday.
Yeah, nice birthday. So everyone here's got their CWNE in just the last little while. So we wanted to one, highlight that you can do it too. You don't have to be as old as dirt. You can be young and a fashionista like Blake. If you saw him in Milan, then you know he's like... What we want to do is bring them up and ask them some questions. I'll be using my mic. They'll have the mic to... You guys work out who's going to answer the next question. And get some information for you. How many of you are CWNEs now? Look at that. Love it. Now, lower your hands. How many of you want to be a CWNE? There's your audience, guys. We're talking to you to help you along your path. Every one of these within the last couple months at the most, I think, has been through the same path you're going to want to go on, that you're in. So Brian's our latest as of today. He's the latest CWNE. So first topic for the CWNEs up here. And go ahead and pass it down as you answer. What did you do to prepare for your journey? Not what was your journey, how did you get ready? What was your motivation?
I think for me, the biggest motivation is I work for a medical device company. And being a former medic in the military, when you're always trying to be prepared and always trying to be ready for all situations. And what I was seeing when I first started, there was a lot of unreadiness. So for me, my real motivation, to be honest, was the patients at the other end of our devices. And I wanted to ensure that we could work with the hospitals as best as we could to provide the best solution to monitor the patients, or not monitor patients on Wi-Fi in some cases, depending on what the environment is. So for me, the real motivation was the patients at the end of our devices and ensuring they were safe.
My motivation...
Be truthful now.
I'm going to. Was when Keith looked at me at Echo Training and said, "You're not a CWNE." That was kind of the kick in the pants, like, I should really do this and finish this. And I've been, because Sam's been driving me for a couple of years since I got my IE wireless. Yeah, cracked the whip on it and call him the help desk, but he's CWNE. And I think for me, it's the, when I started in wireless at the U back in '99, I'm like, this is really cool. There's not too much out there for certifications. And then I saw the CWNP program and I was interested in it, but never really went down that route because I went to a Cisco partner. So I focused heavily on the Cisco certifications, but it was always that, okay, I want to do this. I want to be able to get that experience first to be able to do it. So then I finally felt that I was ready and prepared and had the experience that I needed to honestly be able to put my application in. But Keith's kick in the pants definitely did help a lot at the end of last year.
I totally thought you were already a CWNE, really. So.
For me, it was about connecting dots. I ran wireless and a decent-sized wireless infrastructure at a higher ed for years, and I thought I knew what I was doing. I thought it was successful, but every time I wanted to question it, I felt like I didn't really have the background to do so. Whether that's questioning RRM's decisions or what is DBM versus DB. I mean, once I started reading into it, the more I learned, the more I realized that I didn't really know what I was doing before I started learning. So for me, it was about connecting dots and having the ability to feel confident in my design decisions, and that's about it.
Thanks.
I think for me, there was a couple of things that came up. First of all, the bunch of people who I know really well that I regard as very good friends, like Blake and Sam, who went out and got theirs, and I was thinking, oh, I really should get this done. But then I think the biggest kick in the pants, like Blake, was Devin Aiken said to me, "What? You haven't got it yet? I thought you had it." I'm like, oh, maybe I should do something about that. So There's a combination of factors with that as well. The other main driver that I had for getting that too is I'm the head of the wireless practice at Accuvant, and I wanted to lead by example, to be able to encourage my team to aim for the same goals as well. So I thought I really had to get it in order to expect them to get it.
Good, thanks. Again, how many people are bloggers out there? Okay, for those of you who are bloggers, you have your hands up. Have you ever had this experience? You're researching something and you go, oh, I have this really cool idea. I'm gonna go find out if there's any more information. And you Google on the internet and you get taken to your own blog. All the time. There's value in having your blog for yourself, for your own internal remembrance. Google's like my memory now. And if I have a little inkling of something, it's probably because I actually wrote it, but I just don't remember it. So I find that happening. So the next question, and you just go back in order, do you have a blog? And what blogs do you use in helping you prepare for your CWNE?
Yes, so I have a blog, wifikiwi.com, that I run. And like Keith, I've had several experiences when I've been studying and I've come back to an old blog article that I wrote. I think as far as the other ones, Andrew's blog at Revolution Wi-Fi, I've used that quite heavily. Keith's as well. Just general Google hits Sam's quite a few times. That's about the main ones for me.
Yeah, me too. The fifth CWNP book, revolutionwifi.net. Plug for Andrew there. That's a great one. Mine is mikealbano.com. Like he said, it's really like my own version of wiki, right? When I have an idea and I want to write it down because I know I'm going to forget it in 6 months, it's a great reference. It also forces you to learn the subject really well because you're going to write about it and then people are going to read it and they call you an idiot if you do it wrong. So, so it's a good opportunity to sort of check yourself, make sure you understand it before you write it down for the world to see. And sometimes you're still wrong, and that's okay too.
Yeah, the last 3 exams, I did it in a fashion I would never recommend anybody to do. I ran the gauntlet on it in 3 months, so I didn't really have a ton of time that I went back and looked at a lot of the blogs. It was more me not sleeping, or if I did, go to sleep at 2 a.m. after reading the books and reading through my notes and things. But I mean, I've always found information on Sam's blog because it's a good way to get you some different perspective on things as to what I would necessarily not agree with. But like others have said, Andrew's got a great blog for a lot of information. Even though some of the posts are kind of a little dated, there's still good information in there. Stefanik has got a great blog for information, and I'm not even going to try to say his name because I'll butcher it, but Mr. NCCIEW on Twitter has got an awesome blog too. He did a great job with the CWAP book that I would highly recommend anybody that's trying to go through the CWAP to look at his blog because he definitely puts it into perspective that is easy to understand.
Yeah, I think for me, being at the end of the line, it's pretty much all the same. Definitely Andrew's, Mr. N, CCIEW was definitely a big one. Sam's, some of the vendor blogs, so Ekahau, Aruba went on some of those sites as well, Cisco, Arrowhive. There's just a lot of great information out there that's free, and it's just a matter of taking the time, picking a topic, and going forth and researching it.
Okay, great. If you're on a journey, start your own blog. Just do it. Whether or not anyone reads it, it doesn't really matter. It's more for you. But once you've done it, other people are going to read it, and you'll help your neighbors. So it's really a community growth thing. Everyone who writes a blog, you know, I don't know anyone who writes a blog to get famous or make money. That's not what happens. But what it does is it helps you internally, and I'll let you get started. And how much does it cost to run a blog, Blake?
The easiest solution is just to use Evernote, which is free, and Pistachio, because you can just write an Evernote note, and as you're writing that note, you're like, hey, this would make a great blog post, and tag it, and it's going to be posted as a blog.
And what does it cost?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Just time.
Do it. Okay, next question for all of you, and you can spend as much time as you want. Tell us about your home lab.
So my home lab, in the office, started out with our medical devices, just kind of testing, and we had a Cisco infrastructure. Started reading DP and realized I needed a lot of work on the wired side. So my home lab ended up turning into CCNA lab in my house. Also, based off of last year and working with some of the great vendors out there, I was able to get additional stuff. So I've worked with some of the AeroHive stuff, played with mesh networking in the lab to kind of understand how that works, and get some experience with that I wouldn't normally get an opportunity to work with. And working with some of the Cisco stuff, the RRM, all of the stuff on how that works. Again, trying to understand what the hospital IT folks have to go through and how it could have either positive or negative effects on what we do. So for me, mostly Cisco, some AeroHive in there, and those were the main things I focused on.
And before we pass it on, Brian, you're kind of in a unique situation. You work for a company that has equipment. What would you recommend for someone who doesn't, just starting out, they don't have anyone to give them Cisco gear? What's kind of the minimum you'd put in your lab to start with?
For me, what I did is I went back and looked at what our installs were, and it was 93% Cisco. So that ended up being my main focus. So for me, minimally, I had a 2504 and 2 APs that I started out with, just to get going. If you're doing CWAP, capture everything. No matter what you're doing, just turn your analyzer on. If you're watching TV, you're streaming something, capture it. See what that behavior looks like and get used to it, because every time you turn a Wi-Fi device on, you have an opportunity to learn something for sure. So for me, the minimal stuff was I had a 2504 and a couple APs that I started playing with. And I know there's a great deal out there for a bundle on that right now.
Very good deal. So some of you have probably seen my lab from my blog post, but I've got a ladder rack set up in my office so I can do AP mountings to a standard drop ceiling grid across it, and I've got pretty much every access point that I can. And I've been very, very lucky in some of the relationships that I've created with the vendors out there, like Cisco and Sean from Aruba. You've helped me out a lot on gear to be able to start my Aruba training, and I appreciate it. And I think at the end of the day, you just need to have an access point. I mean, if you really want to get started in this, a Linksys AP is still talking RF. You don't necessarily have to go out and buy a $1,000 access point. Are you going to have more advanced features and be able to do more cool stuff with a better quality AP? Yeah. But how many times do you guys run into the cheap crap in the field? It's just what happens. So I think if you want it, start with what you can afford and make that way. But I've got the Cisco gear, I've got Meraki gear that runs the house, I've got ICE deployed out there, and MDM was definitely a key for me so that as I travel, if I screw up something, I can switch my wife's phone over to something that works remotely. SLA is high on that one and requirements are high, but I think it's important just to be able to have something. Just get yourself something, get yourself some 8494 adapters, they pop up on eBay. Sam should have a session on how to find good deals on eBay, because he finds some things I'm just like, how did you find that, man? That's awesome. But browse Craigslist. You never know what you're going to find out there. Aruba does a great mobility, what is the exact term? Mobility hero contest on the forums that you can get some gear on just by making posts and getting kudos. And that's another avenue. If you don't want to do a blog, you can get out there and then you can get some gear and get your hardware that you need. Yeah, Sam, thanks for the little prod there. We just got doing the next Wi-Fi Rockstar contest, which started because Fluke gave me a Lynx printer as a thank you for talking with their developer about what they should do for next versions of it. And I'm like, you know what, I want to give back, because I'm getting people that are giving me stuff, and I want to give back to the people that listen to our show and make our show worthwhile doing, because it does take a lot of time to do some of the episodes. So I think, just get yourself involved in the community and you'll be able to find ways to get the hardware or create relationships with people, because you never know when we're rotating our labs. Just because we're rotating out older gear doesn't mean it's not still applicable. How old is the CCIW still on hardware? You can still get all that hardware easily on eBay, but just, go out there and find the gear and do as little or as much as you want to. Just have something. It's important to have a lab and always be working in it, because you should never stop learning. That's what I've learned.
Yeah, I think that pretty much well sums it up. What he said. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to be able to have a lot of test equipment in my previous role at work. So I had pretty much every AP Cisco made for the past 10 years. At home, I have some Cisco and Aruba APs, and I mean, you don't need a lot to learn. A Raspberry Pi with free Radius will teach you a lot about Radius. You know, I'm sure all your significant others can't wait to be running WPA2 in Enterprise in the home. My sample clients are, you know, my kids and my wife, and they love me for it. But yeah, you just got to get your hands on it, and it doesn't need to be expensive stuff. You know, cheap stuff, and you know, just keep trying. Just try to configure it on your own, and you'll end up learning.
So I think my lab is probably a little bit different from most people. I used to have a lot of the gear that I have at home, then I decided that the power bill was too much, so I actually went and set it up in a lab at work and got remote access to it instead to get to most of the gear. I have Aruba gear, I have Cisco gear, I have Aerohive gear in the lab, along with a bunch of switches and other stuff to practice on as well. Most of the gear that I've gotten has either been given to me by vendors that I've had associations with, or that I've gotten through my work itself. For my home lab, however, I've just finished rebuilding it. I decided that I wanted to actually build a VMware environment that I could set up a lot of the back-end stuff that you would use for 802.1x, like a PKI, Radius server, running things like ClearPass in it. So I wanted to have a very nice VMware environment to put all of that on. So I set up 2 servers, which basically went out, sourced the pass on the internet, used the new Avaton chip that's from Intel on a Supermicro board, and they ended up not even costing me about $1,000 to put the servers together. So I've got that VMware environment running at home with remote access to it as well. I think in terms of acquiring gear itself, I agree with what these guys are saying. You know, form relationships with people, especially relationships with the various vendors out there. They're usually very helpful in trying to get you to learn, and other people in the community as well. They're more than welcome to help you use the gear, especially if it's somebody who's just got it sitting around at home and they're not using it themselves.
Would there be a need for like a lending library? Because I know I have, probably not as much as Blake's got, but racks of APs that once you've practiced with them, you learned on them, and they might be, a seasons old. I'm not going to use them again in my personal learning, but they might be valuable for someone else. Would there be a need for a lending library? Okay, the only guys clapping are the guys who already have gear, so so really what they're saying is they want to get rid of some gear. Our wives and significant others probably would like that if we could get rid of some stuff. Kind of a change of topic here. We'll come back to the tech in a minute. But you just finished the CWNE. It was obviously a lot of study time, a lot of planning. What's next? Where are you going to go from here?
So for me, I'm actually looking forward to being able to start writing blog articles again. I've had several in kind of the pipeline that got put aside as part of my focusing on getting the CWNE out of the way last year in 2014. So I haven't been writing a lot of blog articles lately, so I'm really looking forward to getting back to that. On the certification front, I also want to get the Aruba certification for ClearPass, ACCP.
Yeah, I recently took on a new role. Time is not a lot. I don't have a lot of it right now, but I imagine that CCIE wireless or so.
I'm trying to get back to a normal sleeping schedule and not be a zombie, but I think for me, next, after, take a couple months off and get myself back straight, and then I'll do ACMX or ACDX and start going down that path, because you should never stop learning.
And for me, for what makes sense is start to go down the Cisco path, based on the fact that's what we run into the majority of the time out there with our installs in hospitals.
You note, I made an assumption when I asked the question that they all answered gratefully. They didn't say nothing other than Blake, he's going to just take some time off. That it is about lifelong learning, that this is just one step along the way. You got a CWNA, you got a CWDA, and sorry, CWDP, sorry. Yeah, anyway, and well, along the way you might have got a CCDA or something. But there's a lot of learning to take place. There is always something more you can learn. So that it's not, the CWNE isn't the end. It's not, as soon as I hit this, I don't have to study ever again in my life. It's just one more step as we're moving forward. Now back to tech. Controversial subject for the new CWNEs up here. Blake's already talked about this, and Sam's talked about it while drunk. But the question, you can start with Brian, is what's your take on the FCC and Marriott and what they're doing there? Hey, we'll open it up and let them share. And you're sober in the morning, so we get a whole different thing than when Sam gave us.
We're sober?
Well, the ruling obviously is very interesting. I think for us, what's interesting, I'm also part of a group called the Wireless Strategy Task Force as part of AMI. And the way that the rule was written was, does it actually affect hospitals as well? So, if a patient's loved one comes in and they turn on, their hotspot and they blow out a patient being monitored, or some vital sign not getting to the EMR or what have you, what effect is that? And, it's not directly stating hospitals. It was more geared toward the hospitality and of the onus that Marriott wanted to charge, and they wanted to get rid of all the hotspots for the Wi-Fi. But it's going to be interesting in seeing how everything actually plays out, especially for us on the healthcare side, because we see it all the time. Someone walks in, they've got that Wi-Fi hotspot, it causes interference, and the issue is it doesn't work. It didn't get an alarm. That patient's monitor didn't go through, the patient's vital sign didn't make it to the EMR or what have you. So the biggest thing is education. I mean, we all know the wireless medium is half duplex. One person can talk at a time. And when you start to bring in these other devices, they're going to cause this interference. So for us, it's going to be, really how does it play out in the healthcare environment, and what effects is it going to have on patient monitoring?
How can I be politically correct? I guess my take on it is, shouldn't a properly deployed and designed wireless network with unrestricted guest access, meaning no captive portal BS, solve the problem of making you not want to immediately go to turning on your MiFi device? I mean, that's kind of the whole containment thing. I don't believe in containing. I don't think it's proper. I don't think it's acceptable. I think you've got a very valid point in your environment that if I'm lying there almost close to 6 feet under, I kind of want my vitals to be sent up. So, but at the same time, I'm really hoping that you guys start using 5 gigahertz in client devices, so I don't have that problem.
We do.
But I think it's an interesting subject, because how Marriott looked to do it, and there's other people that do this for conference centers as well, and the whole charging. I get it, because you spend so many hours creating this wireless network that you are ensuring your reliability and your SLAs, and you want to protect that. I get that. But if you're going to charge an arm and a leg for the access, be prepared to have your network destroyed and stomped on. I mean, that's just what's going to happen, and you shouldn't be able to kick those networks off. But it definitely is an interesting subject. I think the latest FCC announcement that came out didn't really add too much clarity to it. It did kind of spell it around that it's only in a public use space, so a hospital technically is not public use space. So I mean, you guys technically still are allowed to do it, but I don't know. I think it's a tough one, and if we Andrew said it last night at dinner. What did you say about the 802.11 protocol just kind of screws us to begin with, how it was designed? And I mean, is there something better that we need to look at as the future comes up that's going to make this work better? Do we need to work on different frequencies, different channels? Because eventually, you know, Devin and everybody says that 2.4 is dead. I believe in the little bit of capacity that it gives me, if it's going to give me something. But if we keep pushing to 5 gigahertz, aren't we going to screw ourselves there as well? So I don't know. I think this is just going to be the first step of what could be a very interesting year, especially if the FCC holds true to their statement, "We're coming for you," because that was basically what was just released, is we're going to find you if you're doing this.
Not only did they say we're finding you, by the way, here's the URL and who you contact if you want to report someone.
And I'm going to use that URL if I catch anybody doing that to me in a hotel.
Yeah, it's unlicensed. It's fair game. So it's interesting that, you know, we know this and we build services on top of this that people absolutely rely on, whether it's voice over Wi-Fi or, more importantly, the medical stuff. So I think the ambiguity is probably the biggest problem with it. You know, what we can and cannot do. But, you know, everybody's got equal access to that medium, whether it's Wi-Fi or LTE-U or you know, Xbox, you know, yeah, anything. It's a problem. I think actually the Marriott case is the least interesting of the problem. It's just the point that it brings up is, you know, what we can and cannot do. That's sort of the way more interesting problem to try and solve. So for me, it's just an interesting thing to follow, and hopefully, you know, the less ambiguity that comes out from the direction of the FCC, you know, the better. So a little bit of a non-answer answer, but
no, it's good.
I think for me, I'm going to take a little bit of a different tack with it. I agree with the other guys of the problems inherent in the protocol, but I think one of the things that really brings out is the lack of standardization on the client side, and that you can bring these types of devices and have them interfering so much in your environment because they're using channel 2 or channel 7. And that we really need, as an industry, to focus a lot more on standardizing the client behavior and making the clients actually work a lot better, especially in very dense environments.
Yeah, big issue. Obviously, those who follow on Twitter, I'm definitely in the camp of it's unlicensed. You don't have, even in your hospital, you chose to pick an unlicensed frequency to put something important on. It's not anyone else's fault. You caused your own issue. Now, Blake brought up an idea of, if you want people to not need to use their MiFis, give them something that's fast, free, and easy. No captive portal, they just get on and it works. But the bottom line is the FCC came down and said, sorry, you can't block people. They have the same right to the frequency as anyone else. It's kind of like you could block them from not having the MiFi device, no different than you can say, you have a right to carry a gun, you just don't have a right to bring the gun into my church. You still have your rights, you just can't bring it in. So if you want to stop MiFis, stop the MiFis. Don't be, passive aggressive and say, bring it in, and then I'm going to whack you off. Okay, next question. On to tech, and this one's really for you, Mike, but we'll start and have everyone answer it. DFS channels, how do you design around them today? We have, you know, lots and lots of channels to choose from, but we're kind of stuck in a point where if we don't have the clients supporting the channels, what's the point of adding that extra one? So how do you personally go about designing around DFS channels today?
I generally start off and looking at the client population, seeing what types of clients are out there. I mean, if it's generally basically laptops that are being used most of the time, the newer laptops, then I would go, okay, do some testing, verify that they actually work, and then do a channel plan that includes DFS. But I think 90% of the time I'm still turning off DFS just because not enough clients support it. So
just to clarify before you pass it on there, does that mean you're only doing Uni 1 and Uni 3 channels? Yep. So 8 channels?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it depends on the environment, obviously. In the higher capacity scenarios, I absolutely use DFS channels. Lecture hall scenario, the idea being I'm planning for so much capacity that if there is an access point that is on a DFS channel with a client that doesn't support it, well, he'll still be close enough to an access point on a non-DFS channel to still maintain a connection. That's an extremely oversimplified explanation, especially when you start tuning that same environment to make sure that clients can't connect to that neighboring AP with roaming, NARCS, SOP, and stuff like that. So it's a difficult problem. For me, for the highest capacity requirements, I need as many channels as I can get. And in scenarios where there's a lot of classrooms, multiple floors, I just can't not use the DFS channels. But in a scenario where it's maybe a retail space or something where you don't need to use DFS channels, then I don't, for the obvious reason of lack of client support. Hopefully that'll get better. Documenting what clients support what channels is, I think, a good start.
And where might someone find some documentation for that, Mike?
So, yeah, I've been working in the recent weeks on a little project to document exactly that. I just have basically a spreadsheet right now, clients.mikealbano.com. And
say that again slower.
Clients.mikealbano.com. It's basically just a link to a spreadsheet. And I'm working on a tool to randomize the frames so people can share their association request captures that they have, and we can then have links to download those PCAPs so you can look at them for yourself. There's a slew of other information in the association request frames that most people find useful that design wireless LANs. So yeah, that's about it.
Good, thanks.
I deploy single channel architecture. No.
How do you recover from that? Pass it on to Brian. Just let him answer the.
I'm here all week. Yeah, no. I same as everybody is. You got to look at client support and see what channels are supported. If your client's not going to support it, then you've got to change your plan and do things accordingly. Actually, oddly enough, a lot of my deployments lately have been Meraki, which do not support DFS, so it hasn't been a problem lately. But yeah, it's you just got to plan accordingly, and like Mike said, is look at what you've got and see what's going on with your environment. And if the percentage of devices that is going to come in the environment that doesn't support it is a small number, I'll take that risk and deploy the DFS channels for additional capacity, because Lord knows you need it in today's high density networks. So you got to take the risk, and hopefully those devices will roam over to 2.4 gigahertz if you have 2.4 enabled, Mr. Aiken back there. But it's all comes down to is risk versus rewards, and then looking at it and seeing you're not going to please everybody, but you got to do your best to please 99% of the clients out there. And if 1% falls through, 1% falls through. Hopefully, it's not the executive's computer.
For us, we're the opposite. So I come at it from the client perspective. So fortunately, our clients do support it. But in the healthcare environment, a lot of clients don't support the DFS channel. So if we're trying to work on modifying a channel plan with a customer or what have you, unfortunately, probably 9 times out of 10, we're not able to take advantage of the DFS channels because there's a medical device out there that's critical or it has some use case that doesn't support the DFS channel, so they can't be used.
Okay, next question.
Sure.
Again, techie question. And this is, you're new CWNEs, which means you've been studying and your wives and others have noticed that you've been studying, hopefully. And I've got people who, when they go, oh, you know wireless? Oh, okay. My cell phone, because it has the word wireless in it. And they see wireless, and there's wireless stores everywhere. What's your take on the difference, and how do you answer people when they say, wireless is cellular and Wi-Fi, what's the difference?
Well, you make an attempt to try to answer that question, that they're two completely different things, but you know, you start talking, and then you end up starting getting too technical, and then you lost them, and then they just kind of go away and do whatever they were doing before the cell phone didn't work.
Nice cop-out answer there, Brian.
Yeah, I think it depends on who you're talking to and what the context of the discussion is. I'll usually say Wi-Fi, and they're like, oh, okay, and then I'll say it's for your phones or something, and geez, somebody tweeting about me? Sorry, my phones are going off. Wireless is, I try not to lead with wireless, and if I do, I'll usually say not your cellular calls. I don't want to touch that. I cannot hear you now. Don't ask me again. And yeah, I try to avoid the discussion, honestly. I try not to talk shop anymore outside of work.
Yeah, Wi-Fi is that thing you use in your house. Yeah, wireless, that's the AT&Ts and the Verizon. Yeah, it depends who you're talking to, but I just say it's that thing in your house that probably has things hanging off of it that's really ugly that you have in some corner underneath a spider's web of cables. That's Wi-Fi. That's what I do.
I think I haven't run into as bad of a problem as that. Most of the time I seem to be able to get across to people the difference between cellular connection and Wi-Fi by just calling it Wi-Fi. Saying I set up Wi-Fi internet for companies, and that's usually enough.
Well, now that you kind of blew over that question and didn't answer it very well.
Hey, we're experts.
Now for the controversial question that goes along with the same thing. What's your take on LTEU and running LTE over unlicensed frequencies? It's kind of the melding of the cellular technology that you didn't answer, but it's taking over our unlicensed frequencies, kind of like Marriott was stopping. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think they shouldn't do it.
What did you say? Don't do it?
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Okay.
Don't do it.
That was easy.
I think the jury's still out on the detriment that it will cause with Wi-Fi. How nice will it play? If you read some of the reports, it's going to be just fine. Everything's going to be okay. But yeah, there's obviously a lot of concern. By the way,
just to answer that, the reports that you say that are just fine are the same guy who wrote the reports for Global Star using Channel 14 was okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Just put that down there.
You know, it kind of goes back to the whole, hey, it's unlicensed, it's fair game. It's, you know, people want to use it for whatever they want to use it for and deal with it. And that's the truth. It's not a frequency set aside for Wi-Fi.
You remember those commercials where they put the egg in the frying pan and said, this is your brain, and then they scrambled it up and said, this is your brain on drugs? Yeah, just don't do it. If I'm gonna pay for a phone that only works maybe 90%, but it's really working like now. Geez, Sam, stop it. If I'm going to pay for service on a phone, I expect it to work, and I just don't foresee it working all that well with everything else that we've got going on, especially considering if they do it in 2.4 with all the interference that everybody does see out there. It's got bad sauce written on it, so don't do it.
Agree, don't do it. It's going to create a whole new set of problems that people are just going to be unhappy with.
Well, I agree with Mike. It is unlicensed. And if we're going to play the same unlicensed rule against you can't jam MiFis, you shouldn't be able to jam LTE. But the issue is LTE doesn't want to play nice. They want to overwrite and take it and then charge for it. So I think it's a slightly different issue, but at the core still is it's unlicensed frequency. And if everything else in unlicensed is the same, unlicensed, LTE isn't. It is using licensed in a kind of a hybrid, and I think that's where it's going to fall apart. Okay, another question for the panel here. This is not meaning to start any religious wars because they're all good. It's what's in your toolbox? What do you take with you when you go on site to solve problems? We're in the business of dealing with Wi-Fi, which my daughter once explained to one of her friends. He works on unseen things, making them work, but you can't really tell because you can't see it. And her friend was just like, yeah, is it like magic? Yeah, it's like magic. We can't see anything we deal with at all. So we have to use some sort of tool to take our human bodies and our human senses and be able to visualize the things that are going on in the air. Thus, without tools, we're kind of blind. So, Brian, what tools do you use?
So for our team, every team member, they have a spectrum analyzer tool, site survey tool. We are using the air PCAP adapters for packet captures using Wireshark, and every team member also has a link sprinter when they go on site. So, able to go layer 1, layer 2, check cables if we need to, VLANs, all that fun stuff. So every team member has all those tools whenever they go on site.
My two favorite guys are not beating up each other in the back of the room, but there we go. MiniGeek, Channelizer, IPA with an AirPCAP NX card, and then UC knows I love the Ekahau product. I've used it for a very long time, and I think my discount code is still active. If you put Blake in the shopping cart for North America, get 10% off. But so I love the Ekahau product.
Minor little product plug there.
I get $5 each time I say Ekahau. I've become a fan of the link sprinter as well. I think that's something that everybody should have in their bag. It's inexpensive, and man, does that thing work great. I use it to see if I can get on without having to hook up to the wireless. If I can just jack into somebody's network when I'm sitting in their building, it's great. And I think some of this stuff. What? I'm not Jake here. I'm not doing anything bad. And then I do.
What are you implying there about Jake?
I don't want to steal his thunder from his pineapple talk, so just make sure you go listen to his talk. Jake gave me $5 to say that too. And then the other one that I'm a fan of, that I know Keith, you're a big fan of too, is the AirCheck hardware platform. I think that's a great device for consistent readings, consistent data, and being able to just pull it out of the bag and take a quick reading to see what's going on. And yes, I just said a long A.
AirCheck, Channelizer, and I do most of my capturing in OS 10 and reading in Wireshark. OmniPeak is great, but Wireshark is just what I find myself using more. That's it.
How do you, if you're using OS 10, how do you scan channels to get data into Wireshark?
Airport-S.
Sounds like a 10 talk.
Yeah, it does. I mean, you actually have it scanning? Or you switch a channel, go in to capture?
I'll determine what channel I want to capture on first, and
Oh, okay.
And then,
I was hoping you had some magic answer to make it automatically scan through channels. That'd be cool.
no, I don't, but that's a good idea.
Yeah. I'm still looking. Anybody has the idea?
I'll work on that.
We'll take that.
I think for me, it very much depends on the situation as to exactly what I've got in my bag at any time. As a company, we standardized on the AirMagnet suite of tools, Spectrum XT, Site Survey, and the Wi-Fi Analyzer. I've been looking rather heavily at the Ekahau tool, mostly due to experience in both Wireless Tech Field Day and with this conference. So I've been considering whether, as a company, we might move over to that platform. I've been using a lot recently, and that's specifically from my experiences with Wireless Tech Field Day, was looking at the OmniPeak tool and using that. And I had a problem with the packet capture analyzer because I had a AirPCAP adapter to use with that, but it was only a BG one, I believe, and would not even do in. So when they brought out the remote capture tool that could work with OS 10 and the being able to do packet captures directly from OS 10 into OmniPeak, I found that was really, really useful. I've used Wireshark quite a lot for packet captures. Just for general analysis, I think my go-to tool is probably Wi-Fi Analyzer, just being able to open it up quickly and take a scan of what's going on in the network, get a good idea of what's going on. I've used the MetaGeek tools quite a lot as well, because I like to be able to use several different types of tools to assess what's going on in the environment when I'm trying to track down what a problem is.
Good, thanks. Part of the reason for your big goodie bags that you got is so you would have a chance to play with these tools on an extended evaluation and pick one. Notice they're all CWNEs. They basically, other than Link Sprinter, they're kind of using them all. There's lots of tools available for you to use, and you have access to them now. The issue is you just have to kind of do it. Get started and practice with them. By the way, we do have quite a few Link Sprinters to give away for if you're here. we'll take care of that. Now, where's that little catch box? Who has a question for these guys? Yes, go ahead.
I just have one more thing to comment on in terms of tools. For a long time, we used the Land Planner tool from Motorola, and that I still think it's the gold standard for predictive site survey tools. It really, really does a good job, but unfortunately, Motorola just let it go. And it's not even supporting most of the 802.11n APs, let alone the ACE APs that are out there, which is really unfortunate because I still think it's a really good product, and if they'd just spend some time working on it and updating it and bringing it up to date, it would be a really good tool.
Anyone else agree with that?
One more tool that we use all the time too, again coming from the client side, is we use the access agility tools, the iPerf tools. They're awesome. So
where's Dave? Adrian. Where's Adrian? I was just going to mention when someone said their tools, that new advanced details on Wi-Fi Explorer, little scanner tool, but I can go and see what's in the header of the beacon without even opening up Wireshark. It's like so fast. So if you're OS 10, that's a nice tool. Okay. Time's open for discussion. Trent, throw that to someone. Oh, there's a question over there. Oh, nicely done, Trent. I picked the right person.
So I'm halfway.
Flip it around. The mic's on the other end. Oh, never mind. You had it right.
So I'm halfway to my CWNE and studying for the CWDP. The one that I'm worried about is the WAP. So you had mentioned capture everything, but I'm interested from the rest of you what you did to specifically prepare for the WAP, because that seems like the most difficult test of all of them.
Hey, Robert, stand up.
Where's Robert?
Robert Bartz, right there.
Talk to this guy.
Go to his boot camp. He makes it seem logical, because when you read through it, it's gibberish. If you read through it with whiskey like Sam does, it's still gibberish. If you go talk to Robert, he'll explain it to you in terms that make sense and definitely helps out. I walked into that test, I read the book once before the boot camp, because that's what he kind of suggested, and then showed up on what is it, Monday for the boot camp, and then Friday took the test and passed, and I was happy.
Thank you.
Actually, a lot of people say, you know, what order? I'm a firm believer that it's CWNA, CWAP's next. Yep. Mm-hmm. Get your AP out of the way, because the knowledge of how the packets work will help you get the other ones really easy. So and I don't even say it's the hard one. Do the fun one first, because once you understand how those packets work, and Brian, I mean, that's when you find the answers, is when you understand what the packets are doing. So good luck on your thing. Anybody else want the mic?
Yeah, just to add to that, that was my favorite one, the CWAP, and that's the order I did them in, NA, then AP. Yeah, capture and look at every element in those frames, and then if you don't know what it is, look it up, and don't stop until you figure it out.
Another question? Sam wants it back here. He just wants to throw it, I think. So. It's all your fault, Sam.
Sam, you only get one question for the day.
I'll make it an easy one. If you had to do it all over again, what would you do differently?
The question was, if you had it to do over again, what would you do differently?
I would do it in the appropriate order, and I would not do it as a gauntlet style. I ran it as CWDP, CWSP, CWAP because I had vouchers from George for the DP and the SP, so I took those ones first, but I definitely felt, like Keith said, the AP is what sets the framework for everything, and you keep referencing that through the DP and through the SP. And even the AP, when you read it, they're like, you're gonna learn about this further down the line when you go to read the DP or when you go to read the SP. So I would definitely do it the appropriate order by what most people think, and I would not have ran the gauntlet. I don't recommend doing the studying from 9 p.m. until 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, some days not even going to sleep, but just starting the workday back up again. What I'm finding on it, especially on the AP, is that it's not the book that you go and you read and pass the test and you say, okay, I'm done, bye, see you later. It's the book that you go back to and you keep reading and you keep reading and you keep reading, because you're going to find things every time you read it.
What I would have done differently is take a class for the, particularly for the AP, because that's really it's such a hands-on. You want to dig into it and practice troubleshooting specific problems by looking at packets and frames. For me, it was just all self-study, so I probably would have found more value out of if I would have taken the class for that one specifically.
Yeah, I agree with the other people. I think I would do the AP first. I did the SP first because I thought it would be the easiest one for me to knock out, and it was. But actually, I ended up with a higher passing score on the AP, mainly due to Robert's class. I spent a long time going through the book in detail, looking at lots and lots of packet captures. But really, the thing that drew that all together for me and allowed me to focus in on what I needed to know to pass the exam was doing the CWAP class.
Thanks. I think Brian.
One of the other things with AP too, because I didn't pass it the first time, I passed it the second time. One of the things I did differently the second time around was when I was doing captures, I focused more directly with having the standard right with me. So kind of going through the elements and everything directly out of the standard in conjunction with the book. And I found that really helped out a lot as well.
I'll do a little mea culpa here. I've got way too many certifications. My wife thinks it's silly that I collect TLAs and FLAs, but it's kind of my hobby, so I have way too many. Out of the 80 or 90 tests I've taken, I've failed half of them. Gladly. So how many of you failed at least one of your tests? Okay? And the reason I wanted to do that is don't feel bad. That's just what happens. You go in, and I know it costs money, but sometimes you can get the 2-for-1 voucher deal. But that's life. So don't freak out that you didn't pass every one of your tests on the first time. Note, every one of these CWNEs here has. All of you who are CWNEs, how many of you failed at least one test? Okay, look around the room. That's what's normal. So don't let that kind of mess with your head at all. Realize that it's okay.
Yeah, I would say that I sometimes actually deliberately go and do a test before I know I'm ready, just so I can figure out what the test is like. And for me with the AP especially, I was doing lots of trying to memorize the AP stuff, and when I got into the exam, I'm like, oh, it's not about memorizing, it's about how wireless works.
Oh, I like that. That's a great quote. It really, it's about understanding how wireless works. Yeah.
One comment on the passing, not passing. Sam told me this, and it was good advice and kind of helped me out. Is when I passed the DP, I called him, of course. So I texted him, said I'm on my way to take the test. He's like, well, text me when you get out. So I called him. He was like, did you pass? I go, yeah, but I only got a 76%. I'm like, I thought that was bad. I'm like, how did I get such a low score when I just busted my butt studying nonstop, not getting sleep or anything? And Sam's point was that it's not meant to get 90% and higher scores on. It's a tough exam track. All of them are. A passing score is an average passing score, which is perfectly acceptable. If we were all getting 90%, the test is too easy. It's not testing the right things. So if you go through it, and as you pass and as you see your score report, be glad that you passed first of all and that you can move on to the next step. But then don't fret that if you spent so much time on it and you didn't get that 80%, 90%, or 100%, whatever you're going for, it doesn't mean you don't know the material. It just means that you did work hard enough to pass the test, you have the base understanding of it, and then some.
Good. I totally agree with what Blake says there. If the passing score is 72 and I get a 72, I am really successful. If I get an 80 and the passing score is 72, I wasted a whole lot of time studying that I didn't need to. That was inefficient use of my time. So kind of like what Chris said here, I will go take a test up front and know I'm going to fail it, because you walk in going, I didn't study, I'm going to fail it. But you get a whole lot of information about what you need in that exam and what you need to study and not study. Now, for those like Robert Bartz who want to be CWNTs, there's a higher place you need to be. And as you'd expect, if you want to go and train on a course, you should have a higher standard. So CWNT training has a higher passing score. You still pass, but you don't pass at that level. Okay, and the last little bit before we finish up, the last couple minutes, a parting thought of you have 150 other wireless professionals. It's your chance now. Tell us, Brian, what advice would you give them? Anything you want.
Stay active in the community. One of the best things that happened was getting on social media and getting involved with Twitter and meeting a lot of the people that I met here was originally through social media. And there's definitely right ways and wrong ways to do social media, but the wireless community definitely does it right. There's so much information out there and so many great professionals to learn from. Get active. You can start out just small. It doesn't have to be, a big, huge thing, but start watching, start reading, start figuring out and learning from your experiences and sharing them with others. It's not about, failing or doing something wrong. It's more about learning, and we all learn through failures. And so get out there, be active, and continue your education and never stop learning.
Yeah, I'll echo what Brian said, but also I'll look back to the CWAP class that Eddie and I were in with Robert, and one of the other students in the class said he wasn't necessarily looking to go towards the CWNE. He didn't even really realize that there was a test after it, and he took it, and from what I hear, he passed, and I'm happy because he learned the knowledge on it. But he asked about the endorsee side of the application. How do I find endorsements and somebody that's going to give me a positive recommendation for the program? And I think that's something that I looked at very early on, and I made sure that the people that I got involved with, like Keith, like Devin, those are the people that I could then go to and say, hey, I'm ready for this. I'd really appreciate your endorsements. Here's how I've progressed through my career path and how I've gone through it. And Devin helped me out a lot on my application, and I appreciate it. And thank you so much for that. And I think that's important, is that you reach out to somebody who is a CWNE already and work with them. I think I can safely say all of us in this room that are CWNEs will gladly mentor anybody that wants to learn this.
Actually, every CWNE in the room, please stand up so everyone can see you. Sit down if you aren't willing to help someone. So, and I'm sure the four up here are with it. So there's people around you right now who are more than willing to help you on your path and also do that endorsement. Now, legally on the application today, it is not required to have a CWNE be your endorser. Being part of the group that actually evaluates those, when we see a CWNE, it's a big step up. So plan on getting at least one CWNE to endorse you along the way. It would help a lot.
Yeah.
Great point, Blake.
Just make friends with us. We are friendly, except for Sam. Give him whiskey, then he's friendly.
Sam's a little too friendly.
I love you, Sam.
Being active in social networking and whatnot, and in the community in general is a good thing. Just don't. And another thing is, you can't be scared to look dumb. I started a CWNE Google Plus community group thing just to post questions and get answers. And I think if I go look back at it now, I would probably reread my questions and be like, oh, well, you look dumb. That's an easy one. But you just sort of got to put yourself out there, and it helps those that answer the questions. It sort of makes them check themselves as well, right? So I think it's great for everybody. Just go for it.
I would say, I think in terms of general advice, there's a lot of opportunity out there. If you're wanting to advance your career, advance your job, there's a lot of companies who are really looking for good wireless professionals. And being in a position in my company where I get to evaluate everybody who comes in that wants to be part of the wireless team, it's really, really hard to find good people. And I would say if you're thinking of moving on at all, really, there's lots and lots of really good companies to work for.
Okay. Well, thanks to our CWNEs up here. Appreciate that.